Alright, hello. Anyway, today's story is Pinkie Pie discovers coffee. There could be horrific events in our lives, some we will never forget. Today, Mr. and Mrs. Cake will have a moment like that when they buy a Starbits coffee machine and a certain hyper pink pony wants to try it out. Cover image by El Slomo. If you enjoyed the story, check out the sequel, Ponyville Discovers Coffee. Yeah. I'm not sure I have time for that. So, alright. Pinkie Pie discovers coffee. The hallway to the second floor of Sugar Cube Corner was quiet, almost eerily so. There wasn't a noise to be heard, even though there were two newborn foals and a notoriously hyper pink pony in one of the bedrooms. When the Cakes came upstairs, it was music to their ears that there wasn't any commotion. They opened the door to the bedroom to catch them asleep in their crib, with Pinkie Pie watching over them, looking a little sleepy herself. She perked herself up when she saw they were home and closed the door behind her. "Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Cake," she whispered. "I thought you were going to be gone a little longer. You said you wouldn't be back until 3, but it's only 2:15. Did the ponies of the baking contest not like you two?" "Oh dear no," said Mrs. Cake. They thought we were wonderful judges. It was just a lot shorter than we imagined." "But that's not the best part," said Mr. Cake. "We came home to tell you we finally got the catalog." He reached into his saddlebag to pull out a catalog for cafe products. The title was Getting a Better Day's Rest, a listing of cafe products 2012, and had a picture of many goodies for the cover, like coffee and exotic cookies. "Ooh, does that mean we're selling more stuff in the corner now?" asked Pinkie Pie. "We have so many treats to choose from, cupcakes and carrot cakes like your names. And all the ponies say to me, 'I love these cakes, Pinkie Pie, that's so much.' But if we sell more things in the corner, even more ponies will go out with smiles, and who doesn't like to smile?" "I know I do," laughed Mrs. Cake, never tired of Pinkie's imagination. "How were the foals while we were gone?" "Wonderful, they're getting better all the time. We only had to use one bag of flour today." "Flour?" Mr. Cake asked, a little puzzled. "What were you doing with a bag of flour?" "Oh, just for baking cakes. I promise that's all they do. After all, their bodies are growing up. They can know about cakes." The Cakes bought this excuse and looked back to the foals. The babies were sleeping soundly in their beds by then. The Cakes agreed to pay Pinkie the agreed amount of bits and she went out the corner. She said something about needing to be part of Twilight's latest experiment involving mains before she was gone. They sighed once they were alone. Grateful Pinkie appeared to be getting better all the time at this full-sitting business. Not wanting to wake Pound and Pumpkin, they went downstairs and dug out multiple jars full to the brim with bits, each having the label expansion money. "It's finally time," he smiled over to her. "Can you believe it? After all these years of saving up, we finally have enough to look at this and buy something." "I can't believe it either," she said. "I'm really proud of you. That took a lot of work. Let's see what we can buy. But what can we get out of these products?" That's the best part from waiting this long. We can get almost anything on this catalog." Eager to see for herself, she flipped through the pages and eyed the prices, and it was true. There had to be thousands of bits in their inventory just for this, and nothing was above 1,000. They could cherry pick whatever they wanted, and it wouldn't be a problem. Picking exactly what to purchase was trickier than they imagined. There were entire pages full of items they already had in their possession, especially when it came to the pastry selection. It was odd. The catalog carried nothing but brand names, and occasionally they would even see their own name in it, a result from franchising their best-known materials. Then things got a little more interesting. There was a selection full of things they never had before in a section called the Cafe's Choice. Here they had found such things like coffee cakes, bottled drinks, and coffee drinks. "Honey, what do you think about this coffee business?" she wondered. "You mean those drinks loaded with caffeine?" I haven't had a cup in years, but I used to drink them all the time in college. It took a lot of sugar and cream before I liked the taste, though. It wasn't worth the trouble. This Starbits brand says it comes with all of that, and you're supposed to serve it with all the sugar and cream inside. That's how their machines work. Can I see that? I haven't heard of a coffee maker like this. She pushed the catalog down the table, and he looked over the Starbits section. The illustrations of what the drinks were supposed to look like were a complete 180 from what he remembered. They featured towering cups and had so much sugar and cream inside that it was naturally white, the sign of a good cup. Ah, how they first met. I don't know about this cupcake, he admitted. It's expensive to carry, and that's something we'll have to pass down to the customer. And we built this brand on cheap prices and good food. But I've heard what happened to the other ponies that carried Starbits before. They got a lot of new business coming in, and we can always keep the rest of our menu. Now he was going to have to think about this. He trotted back and forth, trying to weigh the pros and cons of the move. He knew he would still have a little money left over, but if he voted on this, he wouldn't have much flexibility for a while. But then again, he heard the stories about the business Colts gaining new service when they carried Starbits in their shops too. Fine, he sighed. But are you sure we'll get more ponies coming in if we do this? We'll be the first in Ponyville to have Starbits coffee. That's big, you know. They're all in Canterlot and Cloudsdale right now. Really? Then I'm gonna place an order for that right now. Stay still. This won't hurt, Twilight said, trying to keep Pinkie still. But I don't know what that machine does. Does it zap ponies with a huge laser? Sprays them with a gas that keeps them sleeping for years? I don't know, Pinkie shouted. The massive machine took up almost all of Twilight's first floor, pointing down at a table with a massive pin at the end. She tried in vain to strap Pinkie down, but she only got out of the table and hopped around, dazzled by the flashing lights of the machine. No, it doesn't do any of that. It's perfectly safe, Twilight explained. It's part of what could be a breakthrough in main technology, one that could change all of Equestria. Oh, well, when you put it that way, I want to see what this is. Maybe you can make it poofier? Twilight shook her head, and this finally got Pinkie to strap herself in. With the maniac ready to go, the unicorn went up to a ladder high above the table and found a dial going around. There it had a color wheel in all its glory, and she turned it to the color blue. She proceeded to press a gigantic red button near the color wheel, and the machine began to hum. The noise was quiet to start and got louder by the second until it was so loud that Twilight had to cover her ears to bear it. A laser emerged from the inside, pointed straight at Pinkie's mane. It was red-colored at first until it cycled through all the colors on the wheel, eventually landing on blue. It widened to cover all of the table, and Pinkie disappeared in one big blue light. The light was almost as bright as the sun, yet she didn't make any kind of painful noises. Hey, this kind of tickles. What do you use to make that machine going? Gems and magic, Pinkie, Twilight responded, using a pair of goggles to cover her eyes. The whole room was immersed in the color blue before it finally faded away back to normal. Twilight's goggles were burnt to a crisp from the power, and she tossed them away into the garbage bin. She approached the table, curious if the process worked. And it did. Pinkie held up a mirror to see her mane had turned from its naturally pink shade to a dark blue. Wow, now I look like... Wait, I don't know many ponies with this kind of blue mane. I mean, Minuet has blue hair, but it's not all blue, it's white too. Yes, it worked, Twilight exclaimed. I can finally change the color of a mane. This is going to be great. But you can already change a mane's color. It's called mane dye. I know about that, but if this works like it just did, you can change it permanently. You'll never need another bottle again. Pinkie looked back at the mirror, looking back at her new blue mane. Actually, can you change it back to pink for me? I really liked it that way, and pink's in my name. After all, I don't think Bluey Pie has the same ring to it. No problem. I just hope it didn't set the house on fire, for it did make a lot of smoke. And there we go. It's all finished, Mr. Cake said as the brand new Starbits neon sign lit up the storefront window. It had the image of Celestia herself, her hooves lifted up and pointing at her head, with a flowing dress coated in green all around. The sign said, "We proudly serve Starbits coffee," for yet another great selling point at the bakery. "How does it look, honey bun?" Mrs. Cake asked from inside, opening the door to capture her husband's reaction. "It looks amazing. You were right. This was the right choice," he said, coming in to take a big look at the new steel-plated coffee machine. "I've had one of their lattes, and it was delicious. Who do you think will be our first customer?" Right then, Pinkie Pie and Twilight Sparkle came in, with their whole bodies covered in ashes from head to hoof. They waved to greet the Cakes, thrilled for some odd reason. Maybe it was how Pinkie's hair was pink again. "Good heavens, girls!" Mrs. Cake gasped. "What happened to you two? Do you need to go to the hospital?" It's nothing, Mrs. Cake," Pinkie assured. "It's just that Twilight wanted to be a mad scientist for a day, and I said, 'How do you want to experiment on me today?' And she said, 'I want to permanently change your mane color because I'm crazy,' and I went along with it, and the machine worked, and I had blue mane, but it's a very big machine, and when she changed it back, we had to go through 3 fire extinguishers. Don't worry, though, she only lost 1 book, and she said it was an evil spell book from a scientist named—" Twilight had enough and shut Pinkie up with a hoof in the mouth. "What she's saying is we're fine. We had a good time." The shine from the steel coffee machine grabbed her attention. "What's that?" "That's our brand new coffee machine," Mrs. Cake boasted. "It's the latest addition to our menu, and it makes all kinds of coffee. Latte, frappe, plain coffee. It's something we thought ponies would like." "What's coffee?" Mr. Cake opened his mouth to answer back, and then the thought hit him. Pinkie Pie with a cup of coffee. The idea of such a hyperactive pony with a whole cup of caffeine in her system. Mr. Cake almost fainted at the idea of it, but he had to explain this. "It's a drink made of these beans, you see, and they're all mixed together and make a drink full of caffeine. Caffeine helps you keep all that energy you have. So if you're really tired, it can keep you awake." "That sounds good. Can I try it first?" He gasped when he heard those words. It was going to happen whether he wanted it to or not, and Pinkie would have turned on the machine when they were sleeping if he refused now. He looked back at his wife to know what to do. She might have looked at him. She might have looked as grim as he was, but she nodded. It would put Ponyville in mortal danger, but they had no choice with Pinkie Pie. Are you sure you want one? You might not like the taste." "But I just looked at that new menu, and it says it has milk for that frappe. That's the best thing ever. Milk is tasty, and frappe is fun to say. Frappe, frappe, frappe." "Okay, 1 frappe on the way. What flavor?" She looked back up at the menu, seeing all the flavors. "I like chocolate." With the order of doom made, he went over to the machine. This could mark the end of Ponyville, and he knew it. He went ahead and put the settings on, giving the order to make 1 large chocolate frappe. The cup was placed in the dispenser, and it would take a while to make, delaying their final moment a little longer. It was relief to him, as he wanted to enjoy this final moment with his wife. She came over, and they hugged tight to each other like one would before being shipped off to war. Twilight Sparkle didn't get this at all. What was the big deal? Pinkie Pie smiled when she heard the machine whirred, making her first cup of coffee ever. She didn't know how it would taste, which just added to the excitement. Would it really taste like a chocolate bar, or would it taste like melted chocolate, which was just as yummy? All the possibilities. This was going to be great. After several minutes, the machine put the whipped cream on top with chocolate syrup, the final step in the process. Mrs. Cake pulled back and watched in tears as Mr. Cake pulled the frappe out and put it on the counter to within Pinkie's reach. "There, 1 chocolate frappe. I'm sorry it took so long." "What? That's not a problem, especially when it's this good," Pinkie reassured. "Now let's dig in." She stuck a straw through the layer of whipped cream and right into the sugary goodness. With her mouth watering, she stuck the straw in her mouth and took 1 large gulp of the stuff, the caffeine going inside her body and seemingly empowering her energy. The Cakes dove under the counter, preparing for the worst. They held onto each other, praying Celestia would take their lives early so they wouldn't have to see the destroyed Equestria. But nothing happened. There was nothing but peace, quiet, and Pinkie saying yummy. They came back up to see Pinkie with the frappe, looking happy as ever, and Twilight still having no idea what was going on. You haven't exploded yet? Mr. Cake asked. Nope, Pinkie responded. What about the caffeine? Don't you feel any different? A little. My stomach feels like it's got a bunch of ants crawling all around, and they're all the most hyper ants I've ever met, but that's it. Shocked and surprised, they wiped the sweat off their forehead. Well, I think this is going to work out after all. Yes, indeedy, it's really delicious. It's like drinking a chocolate bar, and I want this every day if the ants calm down. It does look delicious, said Twilight. Do you think I could have a sip? Of course! Pinkie handed Twilight the cup, and the unicorn used her horn to bring the cup over to her face. She took the straw in her mouth and had a sip of her own, and had her own sip of the masterpiece before giving it back. Wow, that is really good, she noted. Now I really should go back and clean all the dust off my house. Oh, my Celestia, I love you guys! Suddenly, Twilight became a living ball of energy, exploding up into the air and launching straight for the cakes. They were taken off guard as she tackled them to the ground, her pupils shrinking as she became the horror they were afraid Pinkie would become. Oh my gosh, I just thought how awesome that it would be that you guys have coffee, Twilight ranted, slurring her words together. It's coffee! I can stay awake all the time now, it's all thanks to you. She leaped off the counter and into the table area. I love coffee, yes I do. In fact, I want more than two. How about we dance and I swear I'm not in a trance. Twilight, you're sounding like Zecora now, Pinkie noted as the cakes fled for their lives to the second floor. I'm sure that's nice, but do you even know you're rhyming? Of course I don't, because I don't know how now that the coffee is the answer to everything. What is 2 plus 2? 4 coffees. What is the center of the universe? Wherever coffee is present. Dear Celestia, I learned about the magic of coffee. The unicorn lunged and crashed her way outside the window, raving like a beautiful lunatic about coffee to any pony that would listen. Okay, Twilight, you're acting really silly, said Pinkie. But silly is fine. Silly's the best mood to be in, because that means you can make people smile. I know, screamed Twilight from outside. I can conquer every book in days, and that means I could use the new free time to learn more about friendship. She suddenly felt something piercing her neck. She pulled it out to see it was a tranquilizer dart. When she looked up, she found Mrs. Cake inside with a tranquilizer gun in her mouth that was aimed straight for her.